ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Recollection. On this hour, we're going to discuss E3, and welcoming back to the video is Billy. Billy, how you doing today?
I am doing fantastic.
Did
That
you
was,
finish watching E3?
yes, I did in fact finish watching almost all of the conferences. I wanted to get as much information as I possibly could out of every conference, so I made sure I watched all of them. Some were bad and some were good,
And I'm
but we can
sure we're going
definitely
to
get
talk
into
about
that.
that. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
yes.
we'll definitely talk about that. I pretty much watched a lot of them as well. I'm pretty eager for a lot of games, but on today's podcast, instead of kind of jumping around, I decided to, hey, let's focus on this one thing. And obviously, the whole world has been watching E3. E3 is now over with, and well, we're here to talk about it. So, uh, kick us off, Billy.
Oh, where to start? Um, I guess we could just start from the top. We can just start with Xbox, I would say. EA had their little press conference on Saturday, but that was kind of like a pre E3 kind of thing. So really, Xbox was the one who kicked it off.
Mm-hmm.
So I think honestly, we could just go down the list, talk about the games that came out, maybe kind of what our thoughts are on those games. They announced so many games, so obviously, we're just going to kind of talk about the ones that really kind of stood out to me and yourself. Um, I guess to start, The Outer Worlds, um, I think is a pretty big one for the most part, at least in my eyes, because it's being made by Obsidian. I think Obsidian's done a really good job over the last couple of years with the games that they've made, and now, as of last year, Microsoft owns the company, but The Outer Worlds was actually a game that was in development before they signed on with Microsoft. So Microsoft let them continue working on that. They have no attachments to it at all, and they have free reign with the project. So I'm pretty excited for it. But unfortunately, it's an Epic Game exclusive. However, I thought this was really interesting. Xbox is actually kind of stabbing at Epic a little bit because the Outer Worlds is going to be on the Xbox Game Pass. So you can actually pay for that monthly subscription, which is also coming to PC. That was something they also announced later on in the press conference. You'll be able to play that game on the Epic Game or on the Microsoft Store and bypass the Epic Game Store altogether. I thought that was really interesting that they were going to do that. I did not expect that at all.
I think
Um,
that's definitely a kind of a punch to the gut to Epic, most definitely. Especially with them
yeah,
like, hey, I realize you want this in your Epic store as an exclusive, but here we have it. We're also going to be giving it away for free our passes.
yeah, I mean anybody who has that Epic Game Pass or wow, getting the names mixed up.
There you
For
go.
the Microsoft for the Xbox Game Pass, you pay for the monthly subscription and boom, you get all these new games that are coming out. And a couple of Epic Game exclusive games will be on there as well. Metro Exodus is also coming to it, and that's been a Epic Game Store exclusive since the beginning of this year. That's another game that you'll be able to play on there. So I really think that they're definitely kind of sticking it to Epic.
Hmm.
They're aiming more towards trying to not to compete against Steam or Epic. I think they want to be available as like a platform to anybody who thinks Xbox. Pretty much Xbox is everywhere. That's kind of what their whole shtick was for E3 for anybody who didn't actually watch it.
Hmm.
So I thought that was really interesting. What was a game that stuck out for you on their conference?
So for Microsoft for Xbox, it everyone that watches my YouTube channel or everyone who actually talks to me knows that I am a Dark Souls fan, and From Software is one of my biggest producers or developers that I really enjoy. And they Xbox announced along with George R. R. Martin and From Software Elden Ring, and of course like From Software's lore telling and everything, they didn't give anything. It's all going to be
Not a single
speculation.
thing. Yeah.
No, it's it, and that's I enjoy it because it comes into play as like, hey, now lore videos are gonna come out. What does this mean? What does this mean? There was an instant meme that came out and said, it's Sekiro, Shadows Die Twice 2, Revenge of the Arm.
Ugh.
Because at the beginning of it,
Yeah,
it
the
showed the
arm,
arm.
right?
So it's obviously not just Elden Ring. It's obviously a Sekiro 2, but
Of
it
course, of course.
I mean, with George R. R. Martin on the like
On the
team working
project.
on it,
Yeah.
that's phenomenal. I'm looking forward to it. I
Yeah.
obviously we don't know anything about it, but still.
Right. Well, they just got that pedigree. From Software has that reputation that, and I'm totally in agreement with you. Every Dark Souls game, and of course Sekiro. I never played Demon Souls, unfortunately, but maybe one day. I heard there was rumors that it was going to be remastered. Haven't seen it yet, but I'm a huge fan of From Software. Their games have not disappointed me yet, and to hear that George R. R. Martin is working on the game, that's crazy to me because he was also working on that PT game that was actually supposed to come out a while back, and it unfortunately never, saw the light of day because of Konami. But that's a whole different topic. But I really think it's interesting that George R. R. Martin is actually getting into the gaming scene more and more,
Hmm.
and I think he chose a great company or a great developer to work on a game with, for sure.
And with George R. R. Martin's like reputation for storytelling and everything, like with PT, everyone enjoyed PT, and it didn't give a lot of like as a demo, it didn't give a lot of information on what was going on in the game, but it still had you sitting on the edge of your seats while playing it. It was like a if you knew what you were doing, you can beat the demo in 20 minutes or less. But
Yeah.
obviously not everyone knew how to do it. And when they took it off the store, you can buy platform. It was Sony, right? Sony exclusive.
Yes, that is correct.
Yeah, so you can buy PlayStations that still had the demo on it, and those PlayStations went for a hefty price because it still had that game on it.
Yeah.
And with Martin on the team, I can only imagine what they're doing with Elden Ring. I'm super excited for it.
I definitely think it very well could be their best game yet in terms of storytelling, because it might have an actual story to it, but still be surrounded in this mystery that From Software has been known for in their previous titles.
Hmm. Another game I'm looking forward to, and I think it's kind of got my hype up a little bit more and more as E3 went on, and as time went on when I got more information on it, was Cyberpunk 2077.
Yep, the
And
big one.
definitely the big one. And I was not expecting Keanu Reeves.
I was blown away as soon as they showed him on the game, but more so when he walked on stage. I didn't think he was just going to present the game like he did.
No, he did a phenomenal job. It sounded like he legit enjoyed what he was doing on stage. It seemed like he legit enjoyed working on this game with the team. And
Yeah,
it did you know they gave a free
a free
copy of the
copy.
game to the
Yes.
guy who shouted "You're beautiful"?
Yeah, that's amazing. That's so great of them to do something like that, because it just goes to show that the company themselves really care about their fan base, that they would do something small like that. But it's such a good gesture from them.
Hmm. I did read though. I don't know. You'll have to fact check me on this, but I did read that Cyberpunk's graphics requirement is going to require you to have like a 1080, or at least an overclocked like 1070 or something like that.
I'll be honest, I have not looked into the specs for that game. I've just been so excited for the game itself that
And
I
Keanu
never
Reeves
bothered
in
to.
it.
And yeah, I never even bothered to look at that information. But if that's the case, it wouldn't surprise me because that game is looking beautiful. They didn't really show off any gameplay at the conference. It was just a trailer. They showed off the male character V finally, because all we had previously was the female character,
Hmm.
and it looked good. But it definitely would not be a huge surprise if you need a high end system for that.
Especially with the look of it. I mean, look at the graphics on like The Witcher and
Yeah,
things like that. I mean, the graphics in that game is super phenomenal. Imagine Cyberpunk and the graphics nowadays. Because I mean, the Witcher is getting kind of old, and
it is. It's 4 years old, but it still looks really good.
exactly. So you get a game that's coming out in 2020, and obviously the graphics are gonna have to be amped up, especially for things that are coming out now, like the PC upgrades or Sony upgrade, whatever the console it's gonna be on.
The new
Everything,
consoles.
yeah,
Mhm.
it's gonna have to have more of a graphic overhaul, and that's it's definitely gonna be taxing on your computer. So keep that in mind when looking into Cyberpunk 2077.
Yeah, I think that it will most likely release on Project Scarlet. That's Xbox's new console that they're calling right now. I'm pretty sure the name will change, but
What do
for
you
now
think the
it's
name's gonna change to?
uh, Xbox Scarlet. Just drop the project,
They like
and then
changed
everybody,
they they like
and then
changed their complete color from green, like the color mainframe to green. They just go to scarlet red.
yeah,
You got that red ring of death now, and everyone's like, "Oh God,
it's back.
it's
It's making
back."
a comeback. No, I'm not sure. I wouldn't be surprised if they change their branding a little bit, but obviously it's going to be called Xbox something. I
Hmm.
think it'd be kind of stupid if they called it Xbox Scarlet because you already have the Xbox S. So I guess you would drop the one and then just call it Scarlet. I guess we'll have to wait and see. But that's supposed to be a powerful system, supposedly. I think a lot of the stuff that they talked about on the press conference itself. Uh, we'll have to wait and see benchmarks to see if it's actually living up to the expectations they set forth. But I think Cyberpunk 2077 will release on that console along with PS5 sometime at the end of the year or the following year after it releases. In April 15th is the release date. Is that right, Jordan?
I'm gonna have to do my research. That does
Uh,
sound familiar.
that is correct. April 15th will be the release date for Cyberpunk 2077 for anyone who does not know.
I'm looking forward to it, definitely. And I have a 2080, so I would hope that my system can run it.
I'm sure it will. I
Yeah.
I got a 1080 myself. I'm thinking about upgrading, but it won't be for a while.
Hmm.
I might not have an upgrade by the time 2077 comes out, but even if I don't, I think my computer will still be fine, and I think it's going to look gorgeous.
Another, obviously, this one's been keeping track on. They've definitely showed a lot of things coming out. Is Borderlands 3. Uh,
Yes.
I mean, I think everyone already kind of knows more on this, and I'm looking forward to it. I definitely need to complete Borderlands 2, but I still think it's going to be an interesting game, especially with the the level system to where the enemies down level or up level to your level, and it doesn't feel like, hey, if you're running a game with a brand new player, you're not sitting there at like a level 5 zone while you're level 25 or 30 and
Yeah.
you're demolishing the enemies while your teammate over here is dying every 3 seconds and you're trying to revive them. Now he's fighting level 5 enemies, but at the same time you're fighting the level 25 enemies, and I think that's a super idea.
I like the change as well. I think it'll be good with them doing that. I like the fact that Borderlands 3 is going to have its own loot for each person, but you can
Hmm.
also play the classic way where everybody sees the loot. I think the fact that it has choices is a really good thing for them to do.
Hmm. Uh, Another game Microsoft announced was Gears of War 5. Uh, I am not a Gears fan, and I know I'm going to get a lot of backlash from that. Billy, tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I have played all the Gears of War games, except for one of them. I think it was the prequel with uh, Dom that was set before the first one. I could be wrong. It's been a while, but I have played all the Gears of War games. I think Gears of War 2 would be considered my favorite out of the series. I did play 4. I know a couple of people who never touched 4, but did play 1 through 3. I thought 4 was okay. It kind of reminded me of how Halo 4, like how they try to restart the series, but also cater to the veterans of the series as a whole. So, with that in mind, since I have played Gears of War 4, I would say I'm a little excited for Gears of War 5. I saw the Escape, the new game mode they put into it. I saw a little bit of gameplay from it, and I'm not sold on it because I think a Gears of War game should not have damage numbers or health bars. And that is something they're putting into Gears of War 5, at least with that game mode. And that's a little concerning, but supposedly some people said that there might be options that you can in the uh, turn it off in the options. But I'll have to wait and see. I'll probably pick it up. It's coming out, I believe, September 13th. But other than that, they didn't show off a whole lot of information at the press conference. So we'll just have to wait a little bit longer to see more content for that for anybody who's actually super excited for it.
Hmm. And again, I wish I could talk more on that one. It's just I don't know a lot about Gears of War, and I know a lot of my friends kind of give me backlash from that, but it's okay. Maybe I'll play Gears of War 5, but I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah.
Uh,
One game I wanted to bring up
huh.
that I'm beyond excited for: Ori and the Will of the Wisps. They showed off a cinematic trailer for it. Well, you can't really call it a cinematic. They showed off a trailer for the game, and I absolutely loved the first one. It is uh, one of my favorite Metroidvania games. It's right up there along with Hollow Knight. Hollow Knight probably being one of my favorite, if not favorite, games of all time. I absolutely love Metroidvania games. So when they showed off Ori and the Will of the Wisps, again, they showed it off last year at E3, no release date, but it looked really good. They showed it off again at this press conference. No gameplay, unfortunately, but just the trailer alone got me hyped for February 11th for when it releases, and I'm I'm beyond excited for it.
Yeah, I know that you play a lot of Metrovania games, and Hollow Knight is one of your favorites. Uh, I like the art style of these games.
It's beautiful.
Yeah,
Absolutely. It's all hand drawn. It
yeah,
looks gorgeous.
yeah, and I obviously you know this, especially with you trying to get me to play some games, Metrovania games. I love the art style, but I haven't played any of the games. But I definitely love looking at the games and seeing the concept arts and the actual in-game art and everything. And I do say Ori and Will of the Wisp does look very beautiful, and I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to seeing more concept on it.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. I really hope that they show off a little bit more gameplay. Otherwise, I'm perfectly fine with waiting so I can go in completely blind.
Is that coming to the Switch?
No, it's an Xbox exclusive, so it'll release on the Xbox and on the Windows Store and Steam.
So I'm presuming you're gonna play it on Steam, huh?
Yes, that
Okay.
is correct.
Do you wish that it's gonna come to Switch?
Honestly, no. I own Hollow Knight on the Switch, and I don't find myself playing it very much. That might also be because I've already played a lot of the PC version.
Hmm.
I prefer it being on the PC, mostly because that allows me to um, play on my larger screen over the Switch. Obviously I have my Switch connected to my monitor, but I've always kind of felt that it the resolution drop that the Switch incurs makes some of the art style looks a little bit dull. Like in Hollow Knight, for instance, it has a little bit of a frame rate drop at certain
Hmm.
times, whereas I never felt that on the PC version. So I'm not upset at all that it's not going to come to PC. The first one was on or Switch. I'm
from the
sorry.
Switch.
Uh,
Yeah.
the first one was on PC. I'm perfectly fine with the second one being on PC as well.
hmm a game that was announced, and I had absolutely no knowledge of this beforehand. I don't even know if they did any knowledge on this beforehand. And me living in Japan, it kind of makes the hype a little bit more exciting. Is Ghostwire Tokyo?
Right. That was actually on the Bethesda conference, not on the Xbox conference.
You're right.
But if you want, we can kind of list off a couple more stuff on the Xbox conference and then move
Mhm.
on if you would like to do that.
Let's do that. Let's save Ghostwire Tokyo. I didn't realize.
Yeah, no,
I
that's
just
fine.
definitely I know I'm excited for it. But what else? Fantasy Star Online 2.
Yeah, so Phantasy Star Online 2 is one of the most popular uh Japan MMOs. It's
Mm-hmm.
been out for quite a while. I think it came out in 2011. Don't quote me on that, but I know it's been out for quite some time and it never saw a Western release.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Microsoft is able to port this over, and that's really interesting because when it comes to a lot of Japanese or even Korean MMOs, when they're ported over, it takes a long time for these games to come over because they have to be translated, that being one of the biggest things, but they always come over and they're lacking content from their Japanese or Korean counterpart.
Mm-hmm.
But with Microsoft's backing and money and resources and all that, uh, it says they said that it's going to have all the content that is currently available to the Japanese release. I think that's awesome. I've never played the Fantasy Star online games, one or two, mostly because I don't live in Japan. But
True.
I do think that is pretty interesting that they're able to do something like that. It's going to be one of its one of a kind. Um, and I
Mm-hmm.
think if it turns out to be good, I think it might set a standard for any future MMOs that are going to come over to the West,
Mm-hmm.
just because they they all have a lack of content primarily, and just to be able to have all that content is fantastic.
Yeah. And so in Japan, I lost my train of thought again. Arcades. There we go. In Japan, arcades are still extremely huge. Like you go to an arcade and there's like old style arcade machines, new style arcade machines, claw machines, booths that you go in and you can play kind of like that Jurassic Park game you would play at like Chuck E. Cheese's or something like that.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah.
it's still huge. You go to any major town within Japan, and there's always going to be arcade or even two or three arcades. And no matter what time you go there, there's always somebody in there. And one of the games that got brought over from Japan to America was Final Fantasy NT, which was like a remake of Dissidia.
Yeah. Okay. I
Just
know
in
what you're
its
talking about.
yeah, it was in its own style, but that's because it was in an arcade style, and it did phenomenal in Japan because it was an arcade machine. I've been to several arcades and played the arcade version of it, and it was a whole lot more fun having a friend sitting right next to me and fighting him. Uh, in the same room on this like two arcade machines right next to each other and having that arcade vibe around you. And then they ported that over to America, and it was the exact same game and everything. It's just it died off quickly because it didn't have that same vibe to it. And that's what I don't think that'll happen to Fantasy Star Online because it's an MMO. But that's some things to keep in mind is the atmosphere of a game that's being ported over from Japan to America when it does real well in Japan rather than in America itself.
Yeah. I. It's going to be interesting to see if that turns out to be like a phenomenal game and has a concurrent player base because
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of jumping into the already oversaturated MMO space. You have Final Fantasy, you have WoW, you have ESO, and you have Guild Wars 2 as kind of like the main ones.
Mm-hmm.
So the Fantasy Star Online 2 is going to be on Xbox and on PC and be crossplay, like how Final Fantasy is crossplay from PC to PlayStation.
Mm-hmm.
So it could very well keep its player base because it's an anime action MMO.
Mm-hmm.
And from what I have read, it's probably one of the best out there, if not the best anime action MMO you could play. So it could very well keep its player base for a little while, but it might also kind of die off. We'll just have to wait and see, I think.
Yeah, I know it's huge, and it's not going to die off, especially uh, in Japan, because it's huge here. I see it everywhere I go. A lot of like anime is normalized. Like I don't want to say completely normalized, but it's normalized to a point where you see anime characters on different billboards,
Yeah,
walking
it's for
out in
sure.
town and stuff. No matter where you're at, and it's in America, you're not going to see that unless you go to like an anime centric district in like a major city. It's completely different here. They make anime characters for their specific stores that they're like it's it's not going to die off here, especially.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that for sure.
Anything else on the Microsoft?
Yeah, there's a couple of other things that they showed off. Battletoads. I've never been a huge Battletoads guy, but I know a lot of people are really excited for it. That's a new game they showed off. Um, Kind of looking through this list that I kind of wrote down, just to name a couple of few. They have a Lego Star Wars game. It's like all the movies put together into one.
They also
I
have a
thought that was kind of
Legos Forza, and
yeah.
I don't
They
understand why do you want to put a Forza game together with Legos?
It's I think it's an expansion pack for Forza Horizon 4, and they're just kind of throwing in Legos. I'm not sure. It was a little confusing, but I think that's what it's supposed to be is an expansion pack.
Okay, I can agree with that a little bit as like more of a gimmicky, like, oh, this would be kind of fun to play every once in a while. But a full Forza
Yeah,
game that's
I'm
Lego, I don't think would turn out very well.
I'm pretty sure it's not a full game, but I could be wrong. Dragon Ball Z Kakarot. This looked kind of good. It's supposed to be an action RPG Dragon Ball Z game rather than like a fighting game. But the gameplay that they showed off looked more like a fighting game, kind of like Budokai, something
Hmm.
along those lines. But it's supposed to be an action RPG. And I'm not a huge Dragon Ball Z guy. I like Dragon Ball Z, but I like the newer content, like Dragon Ball Super. Not a big fan of it. Just I don't know. I could never get into it.
Do you
I know a lot of people are.
do you think it could be kind of like a Final Fantasy 13 style where it was that action RPG where you go around but then you encounter an enemy and it goes into an arena based? Is that what it was?
Oh, it could very well be that. That's a good point that you bring up. It could be something like that because when the gameplay portion was being shown, it literally just looked like another Budokai or uh, Dragon Ball esque fighting game. It didn't
Hmm.
really look like it was an action RPG, but maybe it is a little bit different. You know, they only showed off a small little trailer for
Hmm.
it, so it very well could be much more different than I think it is. And of course, a lot of people are probably thinking to themselves right now, Billy, you suck. It's this. And I'm like, all right. I'll admit I'm wrong sometimes.
Well, for those people that do know that, leave a comment down below and tell us how it actually is.
I would like to know. And then I think there's two more games that are like major games to mention from here. The rest of them were kind of small little indie games.
Hmm.
The first one, Dying Light 2. I'm excited for this. I really am because they have a really veteran story writer for the game. He used to work on like Baldur's Gate, Icewind Dale, like these old CRPG games that came out in the day. Super, very well known amongst the community. And he's working on Dying Light 2 for the story.
And
I think it's going to be pretty good.
Dying Light was a like a revolutionary survival game, or Yeah, I would still use the term survival for it. I mean,
It was a little bit survival
yeah,
esque. I mean, you didn't really have to worry about eating food or
right.
drinking water or anything like that, but you had a durability system for your weapons. I liked the night when it was dark. You had to actually pay attention to what you're doing because
Oh
you
yeah,
could
definitely.
get murdered by all the zombies. Yeah, super interesting. So I think Dying Light 2 is going to be a really good game. That's out due in spring of next year as well. Most of the games that Xbox showed off are going to be games that come out next year,
Hmm.
unfortunately. Um, so I was kind of hoping for more games coming out this year, but it is what it is. And I
Yeah.
would say that the final game for the Xbox, we can't skip this one. If we're just going to skip right over it, I, I think it would do it injustice. Halo Infinite, the final game they showed off.
Yeah, I'm sorry. We shouldn't. Yeah, we
We
should
can't,
definitely not skip
yeah,
over that.
we can't forget about their flagship game.
Yeah.
Bigger than Gears of War, bigger than anything Xbox owns, Halo
Hmm.
Infinite. I loved that trailer. I thought that trailer looked good.
Yeah.
I I I saw a couple of people um during like the live conferences saying the art style or the graphics looked bad, and I would have to disagree. I think it looked amazing.
100%, 100%. And to me, I feel the cinematic trailers that they always do for Halo is great. Uh, I did really like this trailer as well, and I'm not I'm a Halo fan. Don't get me wrong, but I'm not a huge Halo fan like a lot of people are. Uh,
Yeah.
but I played a lot of Halo 3 and I played a lot of Halo ODST, and I'm still looking forward to this game, and it's
Yeah,
coming to
I'm very
PC, right?
yes.
Yeah.
So Halo Infinite will release holiday 2020 with Project Scarlet. So it will not be on the current gen Xbox One consoles.
Hmm.
And it'll, of course, come to PC and Steam as well. I was really hoping for a release date for this year, but I think it makes more sense for them to have that flagship game for their new console to release next year. And that gives them additional time to work on the game and improve upon it and just add more stuff in it. It's supposed to be one of Microsoft's biggest game developments ever made.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's supposed to have like $300 million invested into it or something crazy like that. We don't know if that's actually true or not, but those are the rumors kind of floating around that it's supposed to be one of the biggest things they've done.
And I'm sure
And
they'll get that money back too.
I think so as well, as long as Halo Infinite lives up to its hype. The only thing I'm kind of worried about it is it's supposed to be it's a spiritual successor. I was kind of confused on what they meant on spiritual successor. When I imagine spiritual successor or spiritual reboot, I imagine something more like the Doom series, where Doom never really had a story, but the new Doom that came out in 2016, kind of a reboot for the series. Or
Hmm.
even God of War as a better example. The new God of War that came out last year was a spiritual reboot of the God of War series, but still had connections to the previous God of War games. Halo Infinite will be the same way. It takes place after Halo 5. So if you weren't a big fan of the Halo 5 story, like myself, that might be a, a big negative for you. But they promise that it's going to be a good starting point for new players and for veterans because it's a new chapter for Master Chief. The story is focused on Master Chief and it's going to have small connections to the previous games, but as a story in itself, it's going to be a brand new one. So that could be both really good and really bad. We'll have to wait and see.
I I I have hopes for it. To me, I don't see it being bad, especially if they're holding off and they're gonna put it on their new flagship Scarlet. Obviously, Scarlet's gonna come out, whatever it's gonna be actually named. They're gonna have the Halo Infinite uh, like bundles with it, and that's gonna go crazy. Everyone bought like the Halo bundles for previous gen consoles as well, and I don't see it going downhill. unless it
Yeah,
like turns more out like ODST. But I enjoyed ODST, but I know a lot of the community members didn't.
yeah, I liked it. But I definitely think that Halo Infinite will do well.
Hmm.
343 seems to be making a lot better choices after the mess up with Halo 5 and a little bit of Halo 4. Halo 4 wasn't the best Halo, but it wasn't as bad as everybody made it out to be, in my personal opinion. But I definitely think Halo 5 was a big blunder for them. And I think
Hmm.
with Halo Infinite, this is the perfect opportunity for them to right the wrongs and come back stronger than ever before.
Right, right. Are you ready to move on to Bethesda?
Yeah, let's just jump right into it. Ghostwire Tokyo, made by
Ghostwire Tokyo, made by,
Tokyo Tango Games, Tango Softworks.
and who is that?
It's the guys who made The Evil Within and The Evil Within 2.
Okay, so great stories for one. Uh,
Yes.
I coming living in Japan, I think it gets more hyped. A lot of like legit, a lot of the places that they showed on the trailer are it looks exactly like that in some of the places. One of them was one of the shrines we went to when you visited me, Billy. Was the Thousand Torii Shrine when it had that one Torii gate and then it just like backed up into all of them. That
Really?
was yeah.
I did not even notice that. That's
Yeah.
crazy.
It uh yeah. And the a lot of the things that were going along I'm trying to I should have rewatched the trailer before we did this podcast. uh
Oh well.
yeah. uh when they showed the street or the sidewalk, it was a street, it wasn't a sidewalk, and they had all the people with umbrellas walking down the street, and
Okay.
it was just nothing but umbrellas while it was raining and everything. That's a legit thing. There's a place in Tokyo, and it's a street. Cars can drive on it. Everyone just has to move out of the way. But when it's raining like that, everyone would have umbrellas, and they're walking down the street, and that street won't get wet because there's so many umbrellas, and you can't see anybody. If you're taller than everybody, and you can see over umbrellas. Yeah, you can't see anybody. And I think
Interesting.
it's great that they pull these things, these aspects from Japan if it's going to be based around Tokyo.
Right. It'll be more authentic that way.
Yes, most definitely. And I know it doesn't hit home to a lot of people who live in America or live in other foreign countries besides Japan. And I think people should do the research a little bit about the game and see what is actual what in it. And it didn't give a lot of story. I mean, people started disappearing in it, and
Right.
it kind of gives me goosebumps. I'm excited to see more on it.
I definitely want to see gameplay on it. I want to know what kind of game it's going to be. They mentioned it's supposed to be like a survival action game, I think,
Hmm.
something along those lines. So it's going to be a little. It's not a horror game, but it's more of like a suspense game. I think is what they're aiming for. A
Hmm.
little bit different than their previous works, like The Evil Within. So
Hmm.
I saw that trailer and I gave it a thumbs up. I thought it was really good.
Yeah. Wolfenstein. I'm not a big fan of Wolfenstein myself, but it is one of the major games that everyone loves to play, and I'm sure you know more about it, don't you, Billy?
I love it. Wolfenstein. I Wolfenstein is another one of those game series that's kind of made a comeback. I think they did really, really, really well with um, Wolfenstein: The New Order. That was the first one.
Mhm.
The second one was Wolfenstein: The New Colossus. They did okay with that one. Unfortunately, the level design and the story wasn't as good as the first one was, in my personal opinion. But phenomenal gameplay regardless. Still felt really fun to play and shoot. id Software, the guys behind Doom, Wolfenstein, Rage 2, they've made a comeback. I think Bethesda has a really good team at id Software making games for them now. And I'm pretty excited for Wolfenstein Youngblood. They showed off two games, Wolfenstein Cyberpilot. Basically, that's just a VR version of a Wolfenstein game. So I'm not super excited for that one. It might be good, but
Especially
I'm
with
more
the new VR system coming out.
yeah, it could turn out to be pretty good if it's under the new VR system. The one that I'm more excited for is Wolfenstein Youngblood. That is a sequel to the new Colossus, and that one is you play BJ Blazkowicz. It's a really hard name to say. Uh, it's his. You play as his daughters. He had twins, and it's a co-op game, which I am very interested in because I felt like the first two games would not have worked in co-op. But if they can make it work in co-op, I think it'll be a really good game. But it's not being priced as a full game. It's only going to be sold as $35, which means I
Does
don't
that
think
worry
it's a.
you?
I think it does a little bit because it shows to me that it's not a full product.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's going to be more of like they had a I think it was called the Old Blood or the New Blood. They had a little expansion pack that released that was a standalone after the New Order, and that was a prequel to the New Order. But it was only $20, and it was very small in terms of content. So if they're selling it at $35, I think it's going to have less content than what you would find in the two bigger versions. But as long as the content contained within is good content and really fun, especially with a co-op partner, because that's its main thing that's going for, I think it will still be pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I would say the other stuff that came out of the Bethesda E3 conference that really mattered. Um, They showed off more Rage 2 content. I'm kind of excited for that, but I think I'm going to wait until they get all the DLC for that out before I go back and touch it.
Mm-hmm.
Because I wasn't as impressed with the game as I was hoping I was going to be
You
when it
hyped it up a
released.
lot.
I did. I really did think that it was going to be really good, and it fell short in a lot of areas, but the gameplay was still, again, phenomenal. They have really good gameplay. Just the guns feel really good to shoot. Just the lack of content, I feel,
Mm-hmm.
was what killed it for me. Then they showed off stuff for their Elder Scrolls Blade mobile game. I don't really care for that game. I think it's just a cash grab, in my personal opinion. I think they just think that they want to get a Skyrim-esque game on the mobile
Mm-hmm.
for people to play, and that's kind of what it is. Um, didn't really make me. I thought I thought they did a pretty bad job altogether for Bethesda's conference. They showed off Fallout 76 gameplay for content that's coming out. They're finally putting in human NPCs.
Wait. Huh?
Yeah, you heard that right. Fallout 76 is a game that has no human NPCs in the game.
Right.
They're all robots, and you pick up um, these logs that people left behind. But
Mm.
now with the DLC that's coming out, it's going to bring back actual human NPCs and have dialogue choices, which the game should have had from the very beginning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But they showed that off, and then they showed off a battle royale mode for it, a 52-player battle royale. I don't think it's going to do very good because the Fallout game doesn't work very well when it comes to fighting against other people.
No, but the Fallout 76 was based around a human economy, and it like a player economy based. It wasn't. I mean, you can. What am I trying to say? It's not a battle royale style because you're not going into one giant arena trying to kill each other, but you still had that aspect in Fallout 76.
Right, but now they're trying to push this battle royale mode into this game, and I don't think it's going to do very good.
I think the battle royale genre is kind of dying down.
Yeah,
Uh,
I think so as well. Fortnite continues to hold
yeah,
that market,
yeah,
and it's hard for people to compete against it. But
hmm
I would definitely say that that's a different topic for another time.
yeah, definitely. That can be a different podcast. We're going
Um,
on about 15 minutes left on this podcast, so
all
let's
right, we're gonna have
continue on.
to blast through some stuff, but I really want to talk about the last game they showed off at the E3 conference for Bethesda,
What's that?
Doom Eternal.
Yeah.
My God, does that game look amazing? I absolutely loved Doom 2016. It is by far one of the best first person shooters that have released in the last 6, 7, 8 years.
hmm
The mechanics of that game, the gameplay of that game, all fantastic. And Doom Eternal did not disappoint me. They're going to show off more of it at QuakeCon next year, and I cannot wait. They showed off a $200 collector's edition where you could buy it and it has the Doom Slayer helmet and you can actually wear it. I might buy it. I haven't decided yet though, but it looked really good. And the
You're
game
really
itself,
contemplating on buying it, I'm sure.
oh yes, it looked amazing. I love what they showed off. I think Doom Eternal is going to be a phenomenal game. It's basically 2 times or 3 times the size of the first game. They've expanded upon the lore. They've expanded upon the demons that you get to fight and kill in the game. Uh, and they have their own multiplayer in house instead of outsourcing it like they did with Doom 2016. They
hmm
showed off a little bit of it. It's called Battle Mode. Pretty generic name, if you ask me. The and the gameplay of what they showed off looked a little generic, but I think it could still be good. They have a couple more months to work on it. But I'm just happy that it's all in-house rather than them outsourcing it. So either
hmm
way, it's still going to have that love of the company behind it put into it. And yeah, I that was pretty much it for the Bethesda. The one after that would be the Ubisoft conference, and they showed off a couple of things. But
I don't I don't I don't want to say Ubisoft had they I don't want to kind of blow past Ubisoft, but I don't think they really announced anything important. They announced a lot of like upcoming things for their current video games, Division 2, Siege,
Siege,
uh
For Honor,
For Honor, just more content for those games. And I think the biggest one of those games out right now would be Siege, and that people still play that. It's not a bad game. It's definitely a good like a competitive game that you can play. Uh,
I agree.
but
Mm,
nothing huge really came out of the Ubisoft's
No,
conference.
I would say the only two things that they showed off that really mattered. I guess there's three things. The first thing they showed off was Watch Dogs Legion. It's their third game in the Watch Dogs series. For anybody who likes those games, I think they'll like the third one. For anybody who did not like one or two, I think will not like the third one. It seems like they're going down the route of like the main thing about the game is you can control anybody, become anybody, anybody can join your cause, something like that. um I think I personally think that it won't be good, but I also don't care for much of Ubisoft games.
hmm
Uh, but I definitely think that anybody who does, I think will probably enjoy it.
hmm
The second one would be Ghost Recon Breakpoint. They have the guy who plays the Punisher as one of the main, I think, villains of the game. It was kind of hard to tell if he was actually the villain or not. For anybody who knows, definitely put it down in the comments. But it kind of looked like he was maybe like a vigilante or something of that nature. But he was super excited to be on the project. He talked about it for a little bit. They showed off a little bit of a trailer for that game. It's basically Ghost Recon Wildlands, but the sequel to it. And
hmm
it's supposed to be a games as a live service. So it's going to be a game that they're going to support for the next couple, 3 or 4 years. and it's not supposed to be like the Division 2. It's supposed to be more of a co-op action focused game rather than the Division's looter shooter type
Mm-hmm.
of content that they have. And then finally, I think the only other one they showed off that um, really kind of mattered was Rainbow Six Quarantine. It's the next Rainbow Six game, and it's supposed to be a 3-player co-op game that plays similar to how Rainbow Six Siege plays, but instead of it being a multiplayer game, you fight against infested people or zombies. They didn't really show off much, but it's supposed to be a co-op game.
Mm. Yeah,
And I would say that's pretty much it for the Ubisoft conference.
some potential in there. I just wouldn't say a lot to go into detail about that. I
Right.
think the final thing uh, yesterday, not including Nintendo. We'll get into Nintendo here in a few minutes. Uh, Square Enix. They
Yep.
had their
I would
press
say.
conference, and they obviously opened up with like the groundbreaking
Oh,
news.
yeah. Right away, they hit everybody with the thing that everybody wanted to see. Final
Final
Fantasy
Fantasy
VII
VII
Remake.
remake,
Yeah.
and
I
they
thought it looked
announced
good.
the date.
Yes. Yeah,
It
I thought that was kind of crazy.
was. I'm drawing a blank here. Give 2 seconds.
Um,
Wait.
you're drawing a blank. I'm
I'm,
drawing a blank. That's not good.
March
We're
3rd, 2020. There we go. March
that's right.
3rd,
All right.
2020. The
We
Final
got it.
Fantasy VII remake. And that's huge news because everyone knew the remake was being made, but they never announced the date. So yesterday they announced the date, and that's huge, and everyone is so excited for it.
Now I believe this was something they didn't talk about, but I believe that Final Fantasy VII Remake release date is only one part of the overall Final Fantasy VII experience. I
They
believe
did
they
they
are.
did talk about that. They said that it's coming out in like chapters.
Okay, did they? I must
Yes.
have missed that. All right, yes, that
Yeah.
is you are correct on that. They will be releasing it in chapters
Mhm.
and they're going to be expanding upon the world in each of those chapters to make them feel like their own full-length game. I don't know how that's going to work, but I think it's the right decision for them to do. I
Mhm.
think them splitting up the game and kind of being like 3 chapters, kind of like how the original game had 3 discs, is the right way to go because this is something that so many people have been waiting for, and there are going to be people that are going to be disappointed in it. There's already people disappointed in it that it's not turn-based
Yeah.
and that it's more action-based with a little bit of turn-based in there.
Within the slowing down time for your ultimate and stuff
Correct.
like that. Yeah. Uh,
But I think either way, they're going to have people who are disappointed. They're going to have people that are really excited for it.
mhm.
I think that with them splitting it up, that gives them the opportunity to do right for the community.
Mhm. Uh, Another thing, Square Enix, they showed off various other games, Dragon Quest Builders, uh, various like smaller games, Final Fantasy, Brave
Eight.
Exvius, uh,
Oh yeah, I forgot about that one.
yeah, uh, various little games that a lot of people like play, but it's not like one of their major hits, kind of like how Final Fantasy VII was. Uh, One of the things, I mean, they didn't really go into detail about this because they always do like developer letters and stuff for Final Fantasy 14 Shadowbringers coming out, but they did release the oh, what is it called? The release cinematic trailer. The like the opening scene when you first start up Shadowbringers or when it comes out, this is what's going to play at the very beginning of it.
Oh, okay.
So I'm looking for like it was nice, it was pretty. I still like the actual trailers better, but it was definitely it shows you like more on it, and I was eager for it. But that's all they really showed on Shadowbringers.
Yeah, and then they had the Final Fantasy 7 or Final Fantasy 8.
There you
Yeah, wow, I can't speak
go.
numbers today. Yeah, they're doing the 8 remaster
Mhm.
as well, finally. Because for some reason they skipped 8, went to 9 and 10. But supposedly, I guess the reason why they're doing it so late is that they lost the original source code from what I read, and that's why it's taking them so long to finally get this 8 remaster done.
Hmm.
So
I'm
I
looking I'm
definitely
looking forward to 8 as well. But
it's
I think 7's the one I'm looking forward to the most.
I am as well. I would like to be able to talk more on Final Fantasy VII because I thought the gameplay looked great, and I'd go into more detail, but we are running out of time, so I'd say we would get to the last conference that kind of really carried it, honestly.
Yeah,
Uh,
Nintendo.
Nintendo, they weren't there in person. They did a big Nintendo Direct, like they have been doing in the past, but this
Hmm.
one was about a 40-minute long direct, and they showed off a lot of games, and
A
a lot of
lot of
them
games.
looked really good, and some of them looked okay. There's a lot of ports as well coming. Witcher 3 is coming to the Switch. I have no idea how that's going to work.
I it's not gonna look as pretty. I can say that it's not gonna have the graphics of it, but I think it's more of a time killer. Like, hey, you're on a long flight flying somewhere, and you have your Switch. What are you gonna play? You can play The Witcher for hours on end. You
Oh
know,
yes, but you probably going to need a charger because that's probably going to kill the battery pretty
very
quickly.
taxing game, I'm sure. They also showed off more Sword and Shield, not a lot of it. I'm not. I'm looking forward to it just because it's on the Switch, and it's a main form game on the Switch for Pokemon. It's not like Let's Go Eevee or Let's Go Pikachu or stuff like that. It's a main form Pokemon game, and I'm looking forward to it because of that.
Yeah,
But there's
I'm
some
excited for it as well.
aspects that I'm not looking forward to, like the giant Pokemon battle system and stuff.
It looked a little weird. I am not. I rather than just do more mega evolutions, but that's
Yeah,
just my own personal opinion.
I agree. I agree. Mario and Sonic at the Olympics. Next year is the Olympics in Tokyo. Uh,
It
and
makes sense for
it
them to
makes
release
sense
that.
for them to release a Mario and Sonic at the Olympics next year when the Olympics are next year. It's
You're gonna
that's a
you're just
game.
gonna see
Hmm,
everybody in the crowd
just
playing their Switch,
instead
playing
of watching the
Sonic
Olympics.
and Mario. Yeah, instead of watching the Olympics, they're just going to be playing on their Switch
Yeah.
and they're going to start cheering, but not for the people who are in the Olympics, but for what's happening
Yeah.
on their Switch.
It's like
I see
Bowser won
it
the
now.
race against Sonic. You're like, what?
What the heck? What is going on here?
Fire Emblem Three Houses, I think is gonna be very good. Just
Or
because it's a Fire Emblem game.
oh yes, anybody who's into Fire Emblem, I think will probably be looking forward to that game. It looks good. It's definitely probably the best looking Fire Emblem game
Mm-hmm.
that we've had up to this point.
Mm-hmm.
So I think with them having us, I think it's definitely going to sell really well for people who have been waiting for it.
One of the games that I had absolutely no clue about, and they announced here, and I'm actually looking forward to it. Not at the beginning of the trailer, but towards the middle and the end, I was like, "Wait a minute, this actually looks really good." Is Astral Chain?
Yeah, they developed by Platinum Games, guys behind Bayonetta, Metal Gear Rising. They were actually supposed to make that Dragon game for Xbox a couple of years back. I can't remember, Dragon Scale or something like that. Scalebound, that's the one.
Scalebound. There it is. Yeah.
Yeah, they were supposed to be working on that, and something happened, so the project was canceled. But
Mm-hmm.
Platinum Games they're a really good developer. They make some really good quality games, and Astral Chain looked really good. I'm
Mm-hmm.
very excited for it.
Another one is Animal Crossing. I'm not. I used to play Animal Crossing a long time ago. I probably won't pick this up, but it's always good to see Animal Crossing come, and I know a lot of people like Animal Crossing.
I have zero interest in it, but hey, that does not mean that the game is bad or anybody who is super excited for it
You
are
gotta like
terrible people.
games like that, though. You gotta like games where you're constantly playing it and then doing things, or it's kind of like a Sims game. You gotta like Sims in order to play it, and Animal Crossing is the same way. You gotta be able to like doing what you're doing in Animal Crossing.
I'm not even a big Sims guy either.
Sims is best game. What are you talking about?
Not even.
What
No,
else on the
I.
Nintendo conference did you like?
Oh man,
We'll
huge
go
fan.
we'll go a few minutes over this hour. It'd be fine.
Huge fan of Link's Awakening. I am very excited for that game. I thought that the Link's Awakening game, this is a remaster, remake esque of the original Link's Awakening that came out on the Game Boy
Hmm.
back in the day. And then it also had a Game Boy Color release called Link's Awakening DX. And it's one of those underrated Zelda games. I would say it's maybe top 5, maybe even top 10. There's quite a few Zelda games out there, but it's definitely up there in terms of one of my favorite Zelda games. There, I thought it was really good, and as soon as they announced the remaster remake last year, I was instantly like ready to pre-purchase it as soon as it was available. But I think I'll just wait for it to actually release before I pick it up. But I think it's going to be really good. I have not been disappointed by any Zelda games except for perhaps Breath of the Wild, and we'll get into that uh, in a couple more minutes because they announced something for that as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but yes, I'm really excited for Link's Awakening. They showed off Luigi's Mansion 3, showed off a little bit more for that. I'm honestly, I've never really played any of the Luigi Mansion games, so I
It's
can't really
also
say
one of
much
those
on that.
games where like if you played it, you'll probably like it. Uh, but yeah, I've never played it, so
Yep. Big thing they showed off was a lot more Smash Bros. Content.
yeah.
Super Smash Bros. They
Started
showed off,
off with Smash Bros, and then they
and
ended it off with Smash Bros.
yeah, like they really wanted to get more of those characters shown off. I
Hmm.
definitely think. Um, what else? They showed off No More Heroes 3. I can't see much on that, but I know the No More Heroes um games are pretty popular for the people who actually play them, so I'm pretty sure those people are super happy that that one was announced. And one other one that I want to talk on before um, I'm good with the final game that we'll mention, but Cadence of Hyrule. It's made by the guys who made Crypt of the Necrodancer. So it's a game where you move to the beat of the music and you attack on the beat. Crypt of the Necrodancer, really hard game. And I thought it was really interesting that they are making um, a Zelda game because this is a Nintendo product that they got the license for to be able to make a game within that universe.
Hmm.
They trust the guys who made Crypt and the Necrodancer enough to make a Zelda game, basically. I think that's
That's
awesome.
that's one of the games where we had to move. Like you said, with the music, we were sitting there on the tiles, and we could only move like when the bass dropped or something like that, right?
Yeah, it had a little heart meter on the bottom, and then these
Yeah.
bars moved in, and then when it touched the heart, then you would move. And if you
Hmm.
didn't move at that right moment, you would either lose like the bonus that you had, or the enemy would take the turn, and you wouldn't be able to get the turn. And it was difficult. I never
Hmm.
got super far into it, but I'm pretty excited for Cadence of Hyrule because it's within the Zelda universe. And what's even crazier is it comes out in 3 days. I believe it comes out on the 14th this week for people who are going to listen to it next week. So it'll be out when you guys listen to this.
Yeah.
So go
Speaking of
buy
which,
it on Switch.
we are recording this. It is June 12th for me, but it's June 11th for Billy. He lives in the States. I'm obviously in Japan. So when we upload this, it will be Sunday night for stateside viewers, Monday morning for Japan and Asian server viewers. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So that game will be out. Go pick it up. I think it's gonna be a good game.
All right, you ready? Go ahead and
Yeah.
announce the final one.
The last one that they announced was Breath of the Wild 2, or whatever they're gonna call it. Basically the sequel to Breath of the Wild. I know a lot of people are beyond excited for this. It just started development. I don't know how long it's been in development. That's all they said at the very end was that the sequel to Breath of the Wild is now in development for anybody who did not watch the Nintendo Direct.
Yeah, and
That's
that's huge news because it's an open world Legend of Zelda game, and everyone knows Breath of the Wild, and that was like their it was like the flagship game for when the Switch came out, and
that is yeah.
now now that they're doing a second one, I mean the first one you can play for hours on end playing that one game, and now you're going on to a second one, and people are probably going to pick it up that haven't even finished the first one yet.
What I find crazy about this is I can't think of any other Zelda game that has a direct sequel to it. This takes place in the same world, in the same timeline, because every Zelda game that kind of releases is usually in a different timeline. The only one that comes to mind is A Link to the Past and its sequel, quote unquote, A Link Between Worlds.
Hmm.
I say it's a sequel with quotation marks because it's set in that same world, but it doesn't cover the same link. It's a different link than the one in Link to the Past. Whereas Breath of the Wild 2, the little bit that they showed off was Zelda and Link from the first Breath of the Wild. So it's a direct sequel to it. That is pretty big news because it'll be the first Zelda game that actually has a direct sequel to it. And they show they did a little pan out where they were showing the Hyrule Castle as it was either being destroyed or lifted up from the ground or something like that. But the world, anybody who plays Breath of the Wild will recognize that world instantly. So whatever they're doing to that world, it's gonna have a direct impact on everything that you've played in the first game.
Hmm.
So I think a lot of it will be relatively familiar to anybody who played the first game.
Yeah, and that's like I said, it's big news. I wasn't expecting it. I wasn't expecting a sequel to that. Like you said, there's really no other Legend of Zelda game that has a direct sequel. And you know, if we are wrong about that, leave a message in the comments. Tell us that we're stupid. Tell us what
Yeah,
it is.
because from it's a direct sequel, so I would
Yeah.
be surprised if we were wrong, but I think that's pretty interesting.
Hmm.
I put about 80 hours into the first one. I thought it was okay. I'm honestly not a big fan of Breath of the Wild, as a lot of people are, but I know a lot of people are really excited for this sequel.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. That is all the time we have for today. I didn't want to rush that last bit because Nintendo did announce a lot of games.
And I
Uh,
think they did a great job. A lot of people think that they kind of carried E3.
they
They
won it.
ended,
They won
yeah.
E3.
I would agree. What? Okay. I would say we're a little over time, but what did you think was the best announcement from E3 in your opinion?
Oh man. I don't think Nintendo had the best announcement.
Okay.
The hype factor, I don't think Nintendo had that. They had like the best games coming out, the most looked forward to games coming out. Uh, but in terms of hype factor, I think that falls within Cyberpunk 2077. Keanu
Or
Reeves just takes
yeah.
it.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to honestly agree with you. I think that a lot of people were super excited for the announcement of Cyberpunk 2077. They got that announcement, they got a release date, they got a huge surprise with Keanu Reeves,
Hmm.
and I think as the game itself, I think it stole the show.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, there was a lot of other big hits with Final Fantasy VII remake having its release date finally announced. Uh, like Elden Ring being from Software and George R. R. Martin. That was a big announcement because
Yes.
R. R. Martin's on there, and you know you got other little games coming out that I wouldn't say little, but that have already been announced. You know, Borderlands 3. Uh, Fallen Order was been announced already, and we knew
Yeah,
about
we
it.
we
Uh,
kind of we kind of went over that game. We never even talked about that one.
yeah, I mean, we talked about it in our first podcast, so I guess
That's
it's
true.
and that was already announced by the time we were already talking about it. So,
That is very true.
and I mean, I think it's those games that like made E3 big this year, but Nintendo as a whole, I think definitely
Won the
carried it.
conference.
Yeah, they
I agree.
had, I want it might it might be chalked up for the fact that it was a Nintendo Direct kind of thing.
Uh, yeah,
So
it very well could be,
yeah, they had like the home field advantage there. They
for
were
sure.
just streaming it, so but it still nonetheless took E3 like along with them.
Yeah.
So,
I I definitely agree.
so any closing remarks, Billy?
Um, no, besides Ubisoft, I think they had the worst conference there. Bethesda was also pretty bad, but I think Doom Eternal, just its presence there really helped. If they did not show off Doom Eternal, I think Bethesda would have had the absolute worst conference there. Other than that, I think we had a pretty good conversation. Anybody who did not watch any of the stuff at E3, you can obviously find it on YouTube. For anybody who wants to look all that stuff up, I'm sure there's going to be plenty of other people talking about it in the coming days, and probably starting next week, we'll be back to normal, waiting for the next big PAX East or PAX West or whatever
Yeah,
convention coming up
yeah.
next.
Yeah. Like you said, I mean, I'm sure next week we can. So for those of you listening to this podcast, if you heard any games that you want us to go into more detail about, that you want us to have more of a conversation about, leave it in the comments below. Uh, that way we see that and we can make more of a segment. We can take that 15, 20, 25 minutes, whatever game it is, and we can talk way more on it. Uh, we try to cram a lot of games into an hour, and we're over that hour, but I don't care. I mean, I'm sure if you enjoyed the podcast, you're still listening to it, whether it's over an hour or not. But if you want to hear some more on a specific game, leave it down in the comments below, and we'll try to get into that specific game on our next podcast. With that, though, this concludes this hour on Let's Discuss E3. Billy, thanks again for coming this time. It was a great opportunity to talk to you, and there was a lot of things to talk about, get your input on everything.
Of
So
course.
thank you again for stopping by.
And thank you for having me on as a co-host again.
You're very welcome, and I'm sure I'll see you next week, right?
That's correct, sir.
Awesome, awesome. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our this hour video Recollection Presents. And hit subscribe, leave comments below, hit like, turn on the notification bell. For those of you listening on Castbox, go ahead and head over to my YouTube at Recollection and follow me there. And that way you keep up on everything that we do here. Once again, thank you. Catch you guys later.
Have a good night.